Hey guys, so I know this is a weird start to a video. Usually I'm in my chair, I have my glasses on. I'm doing neither of those things right now. That's because I'm currently in Athens, Greece, but some huge news came out about my favorite anime on earth, Hunter x Hunter. There was a tweet put out on Twitter by a random account, and people are like, oh, we don't know who this random account is, but here's the thing. This random account said 4 new chapters of Hunter x Hunter coming, and Yusuke Muramata, the mangaka of One Punch Man, says that this Twitter account belongs to the one and only Togashi, the mangaka of Hunter x Hunter. So in my infinite foresight for something like this happening, before I left for Greece, I decided to do a video that catches everybody up on what happens after the anime in Hunter x Hunter in the manga. And that is this video right here. So if you haven't caught up with the manga and you want to be by the time these 4 new chapters come out, well then, got a video for you. Kick back, relax, and watch it, please.
So if you followed this page for a while, you'll know that Naruto isn't actually my favorite anime of all time. It's actually, well, the one that this MC belongs to. And while I've talked about Hunter x Hunter on this page a good amount, it's not as much as I would like to. But unfortunately, Hunter x Hunter doesn't quite have the following that Naruto does, so here we are talking about Naruto the majority of the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, and I quite enjoy it, but today is going to be about Hunter x Hunter. Specifically, one of the things about Hunter x Hunter that hurts my soul to this day, the fact that the anime never finished, or the manga for that matter. You see, Togashi, I believe, is the greatest mangaka of all time, arguably one of the greatest storytellers of all time. But unfortunately, he is plagued with a chronic back issue that makes it damn near impossible for him to continue Hunter x Hunter without continuing in a life of pain. And that is absolutely something we as fans have to respect. But because of this, Hunter x Hunter is in a weird place. The anime ends after the election arc, which is canon, by the way. I don't know why people think the election arc is a filler made to tie off the show. Technically, some of the events were changed to give it a somewhat better ending, but it's still just the election arc. But there's actually 1.5 arcs after the election arc. There's the Dark Continent arc and the Secession Tournament arc. Now, I'll admit neither of these arcs are very long, considering the fact that the Dark Continent arc is only 2 volumes and the Secession Tournament arc is only 1. But there's still a lot of stuff that happens in there. A lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know about, because some people are intimidated by the wordiness of the manga. But that same wordiness is literally why Hunter x Hunter is probably one of the best fleshed out stories in the history of anime. But regardless, let's get into it. Today we are talking everything that happened after the anime ended in Hunter x Hunter. But before we get to breaking down anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're looking for more NC Hammer 23 content, guys, please go follow my other page, NC Gamer 23, where I play video games. But before we get into all that, guys, today we have a brand new and very interesting sponsor, Gamer Bread.
To be at the top of your game, you need fuel. Introducing Gamer Bread, the world's first high-performance bread made for gamers. It's got an ambidextrous grip, strengthened fingers, and improved dexterity. And when you're done, fuel up with maximum caloric density for maximum focus. Dual functionality flash cools your rig. Get it now at gamerbreadnow.com.
I hate to break this to you guys, but Gamer Bread doesn't exist. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Are you guys sick of every RPG on the mobile platform being all fluffy and cute and bright? Enough with the happiness, candy, and unicorns. I want the dark realism. And that's exactly what Raid Shadow Legends is cooking up. They are trying to serve the best example of dark fantasy and realism that you can get in a mobile game platform. So what's new in Raid Shadow Legends? Why join now? Well, there's a ton happening this month. There's new champions, an update to Tag Arena, and a full schedule of events and tournaments. But there's something else bigger coming down the pipe. Raid is currently running a Delania Chase event, where you can get your hands on a brand new legendary champion from the High Elf faction, Delania. All you have to do is log on to Raid for 7 days between now and July 20th, and you get her. And she's no throwaway character. She's one of the strongest support champions in the entire game. This is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you click my link in my description or scan the QR code here on my screen, you'll get a free starter pack worth almost $40. We're talking 3 free champions at once: Misery Cord Tiger Soul Romero plus 10 magic XP brews, 10 force XP brews, and 10 spirit brews. That's huge. They only gave 1 champion away in the past. Now we're talking 3. All this treasure will be waiting for you here. It's that easy. Click the link in my description or scan my QR code and I'll be waiting for you in game. I try to tell Raid not to do this because I think they're giving away too much stuff, but the gifts keep coming. If you use the promo code MyDelania, that's MYDELIANA, MyDelania, after you download Raid, you will get 50 XP brews to instantly get your legendary hero Delania to max level. On top of that, you get a ton of silver. Sometimes the deals are just too good to pass up. So go ahead, download Raid and meet me in game. So we're gonna go in chronological order here and start with the Dark Continent Expedition arc. See, if you've watched the anime, you've heard the Dark Continent sprinkled in, but you may have no idea what the Dark Continent is. You see, if you've ever actually seen a world map of the HunterxHunter world, that's actually not the whole thing. Essentially, the world map that we've been given is kind of just like a grouping of islands on a much greater world. And in all directions from those islands is a continent, specifically the Dark Continent. It's a monumental landmass that takes up the majority of the Earth's land. But the only problem is it's super dangerous, which is why the majority of the life that we see resides on those islands. But why is the Dark Continent so dangerous? Well, the majority of the expeditions that go to the Dark Continent never come back. They either die on the way or on the continent. There has been 5 expeditions that made it back, but to call those expeditions successful is a stretch. Problem is, each and every single one of those 5 successful expeditions brought back a colossal threat. The first expedition brought back the gaseous life form. Essentially, the Mimbo Republic, which is one of the countries in that island grouping, sent an expedition guarded by the Hunter Association in order to look for the Trinity Elixir in the Dark Continent. During this expedition, they were attacked by the gaseous life forms. There's a couple of them. They're kind of like a breed of monster. These gaseous life forms attacked the Mimbo Republic expedition and killed all but 3 of the explorers, who returned, but their sanity was lost. Now, the Eye's ability isn't necessarily known, except for the fact that it's believed that Alika is actually possessed by an Eye, and that the Eye's abilities come out in Nanika. This is because Nanika is always saying I, like saying hi in Japanese, which means yes, but she drops the H. And when you consider the fact that Nanika's abilities are to squish humans at will and also grant wishes, the Eye are terrifying. The next catastrophe brought back from the Dark Continent was Bryon, the botanical weapon. When the United States of Saherta sent their elite forces basically to the Dark Continent to find whatever they could, they ran into a problem. Well, actually, they did pretty good. They found a sea of trees in a labyrinth city about 400 kilometers into that sea of trees. And in this labyrinth city, they actually found herbs able to cure 10,000 different diseases. But that's when Bryon, the botanical weapon, found them, and he was the protector of the city, so he easily killed all but 2 of them. Jing says that Bryon is a level A threat, which is actually higher than the Chimera ants. Outside of that, we don't know anything about his abilities, but he did kill elite level hunters. After that, there's Hellbell, the two-tailed snake. This one was brought back by the Federation of Okima. You see, the Federation of Okima sent 100 people to the Dark Continent looking for nitro rice. Nitro rice was supposed to be a sustenance able of increasing your longevity. Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't send 100 people. They sent 1,000, and only 11 of them survived. Because while looking for nitro rice, the Hellbell decided to attack these 1,000 people. And the Hellbell doesn't hunt for food, it hunts because it has a homicidal intent. After that, there's the Pap. The Pap is probably the worst way to go. You see, the Burgerose Union also sent 1,000 people through the Dark Continent, kind of also just looking for anything. And while in the Dark Continent, they actually found a mineral that could reinvent power for the entire world. They found a mineral called the Unmanned Rock. And this rock, when placed in water, even the smallest little bead could generate 10,000 kilowatts of electricity. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean 20,000 for an entire day. But unfortunately, this is also where the Pap lived. And the Pap likes to drain humans of their energy, basically leaving a husk and then keeping them as pets. Only 7 people survived. The last threat isn't a monster, it's a disease. Approximately 50 years ago, the Kukanyu Kingdom sent an expedition to the Dark Continent. They were looking for a plant called the Metallian. Metallion. This expedition was guided by the Hunters Association and Netero's son, who's named Beyond Netero. I wish I was kidding. And here's the thing, they actually found the Metallion, and they were able to retrieve it. But on their way back to their ship, they got lost. And the area that they stumbled into was the place that the Zorbay disease existed. And the Zorbay disease is referred to as the immortality disease, but it is very deadly. But here's the thing, only one person survived this infection. The rest all died, but he had a really cool ability if you survive the infection. You can survive without sustenance and basically become immune to death for years. One caveat though, the only way to sustain this immortality is to eat your own flesh, but it's fine, it regenerates really fast. Because of this, most people who survive it and then become immortal lose their mind because they have to eat themselves. So yeah, that's why people don't go to the Dark Continent anymore. But here's the thing, the world kind of gave a pat on the back for the people who even had people come back from the Dark Continent. Essentially, the 5 countries I just listed became a thing called the V5, kind of like the HunterxHunter's World UN. And the first thing that they did after realizing that they all made the same mistake was ban travel to the Dark Continent. So now that the preamble and the prelude is done here, we can get into what is the Dark Continent arc. So those 5 countries banned travel to the Dark Continent, right? But they banned that for their own countries and existing countries. But what if hypothetically a new country was to come into the mix? To be formed, would they be bound by the laws of this Dark Continent ban? They don't think so. The country I'm referring to is a country by the name of Kakin. Essentially, the Kakin Empire was once an older country that was bound by the Dark Continent ban. And then they did some shuffling of their political system, and now they believe they're a new country, and now they can go to the Dark Continent. This is a problem because you remember what happened the last 5 times we went to the Dark Continent successfully. We brought back things that killed a lot of people. So the arc opens with Beans bursting into the room of the Zodiacs and shows the Zodiacs, the king of the Kakin Empire, admitting that he's going to the Dark Continent. This king has 4 names, but I'm just going to refer to him as Nasubi. But here's the thing, the Kakin Empire isn't going to go there by themselves. They understand it's dangerous, so they know they have to hire the right people. So the Kakin Empire decided to hire the only living survivor of a Dark Continent trip, Beyond Netero. This surprises all of the Zodiacs because none of them knew that Netero had a son, but it's not like he was trying to hide it. His name is Beyond Netero. But here's the thing, this video was actually specifically aimed at the Zodiacs. Essentially, this video is Nasubi and Beyond Netero telling the Zodiacs that they shouldn't be alarmed about this trip to the Dark Continent, and in fact, they're invited. Yeah, they want the Zodiacs to go with them to the Dark Continent, even though the Zodiacs are kind of like the V5's mobilization force. But essentially, the whole world gets really jazzed up about going to the Dark Continent. It is the unexplored landmass that has killed everyone who's ever been there, but adventure. And people from all over the world travel to Beyond Netero in order to join his expedition force. So the next thing that we see is him giving a speech to said expedition force where Periston, one of the Zodiacs, is seen. But why is Periston with Beyond and not with the Zodiacs? Well, after the 13th chairman election arc, both Periston and Jing resign from the Zodiacs. Periston to follow Beyond and Jing to follow Periston. Not like follow him like he wants to be with him, like keep an eye on him. And it's at this point that it's revealed that the V5 have actually told the Zodiacs that their mission is to hunt down Beyond. Now the thing is, there's also a second video that Beans had. A video that Isaac Netero left behind should anybody ever claim to be his son. The only caveat for watching this video is that all of the Zodiacs be present. And now that Jing and Periston were no longer Zodiacs, they were able to watch this video. This video warned the Zodiacs that Beyond should not be elected head of the expedition of any trip to the Dark Continent. You see, Isaac knew this was coming, and this throws the Zodiacs into a tizzy. They've now been assigned to catch Beyond, and also Isaac has told them to not let him go to the Dark Continent. But they get super lucky because right after that video plays, Beyond wanders into the Zodiac's room. He doesn't wander in, he means to go there. And he tells them to tell the V5 that they've already captured him. So they actually do what Beyond asks, and they take him into imprisonment, where Cheadle begins to interrogate him. It's at this point that Beyond tells him that the king of Kakin has allowed him to go to the Dark Continent as long as he makes the king famous. And after this, he tells him that he is now declaring war on the Zodiacs. This kind of gets the Zodiacs fired up. They're like, okay, we'll fight you. But the thing is, the Zodiacs then get a call. Essentially, the call states that the V5 has approved the king of Kakin's trip to the Dark Continent, and that the Zodiacs are going with Beyond. See, the problem with the V5 and Kakin here is that Kakin technically isn't bound by the treaty. So Kakin can go to the Dark Continent, and while it is unlikely that they'll be successful, if they go to the Dark Continent, they have claimed that they would take control of the Dark Continent, giving them the entirety of an unlimited power source that is the Dark Continent. The V5 doesn't want a country not bound by their treaty to control the Dark Continent. So by sending the Zodiacs, they are getting an equal share in colonizing the Dark Continent. But the V5 doesn't actually want to go to the Dark Continent. They want the Zodiacs to tag along on this trip and trick the King of Khakeen and beyond to thinking that one of the islands near the Dark Continent is the Dark Continent. And then we don't have to worry about civilians dying or bringing back another monstrosity. But here's the thing, the Zodiacs are down 2 numbers. Jing and Periston left. So Cheadle actually calls up Leorio, who was popular amongst the Zodiacs and the greater public, and offers Leorio a spot as one of the Zodiacs. Leorio originally declines until he asks how many spots are open, and when he hears 2, he says he'll do it as long as they take on Kurapika. So they recruit Kurapika as well, who also initially declines until they tell Kurapika that the Prince of Khakeen, specifically the 4th one, owns a pair of scarlet eyes, and that becoming a Zodiac, they would have access to this prince. And so Leorio and Kurapika are back together because Kurapika's been trudging through the mud and blood for a little while. Once all the new Zodiacs get together, Cheadle informs the Zodiacs that the V5 is now the V6 because Khakeen has been involved. And it's at this point that Cheadle tells the Zodiacs that the goal of this mission is to capture at least one of those dark beasts, bring it back safely, and get rid of Beyond. And it's at this point that it's revealed that Periston was always an inside agent for Beyond, and that he was waiting for the moment of Isaac Netero's death in order to get Beyond to initiate this plan. Smash cut to Beyond's lair, where Jing is finally confronting Periston. 1, to stop Periston's plans, and 2, to join the expedition. And during this conversation, it comes up between Jing and Periston that Periston has 5,000 Chimera ants. And essentially, if the V5 doesn't allow them to go to the Dark Continent, Periston will release these 5,000 Chimera ants and have them wreak havoc. This carnage will create policy changes that will then allow them to go to the Dark Continent. Jing is like, don't do that, and talks Periston out of it, and essentially then begins to educate the expedition group on the 5 threats that came back with the original expeditions. And everyone's like, how do you know so much about the Dark Continent? You've never been there. And that's when he explains that all of the Dark Continent expeditions have been recorded by his father, Dawn Freaks. And in the meanwhile, Gon has actually come along with Jing and wants to go to the Dark Continent. The only problem is he can no longer use Nen. So Gon is actually sent back to Whale Island to look for something. Yes, Jing just quite literally says something. And Gon just chills with Mito. There's a problem though, because there's a little bit of tension between Jing and Periston. Mostly because Periston sent assassins to the Hunter exam to infiltrate the Hunters. But the only problem was that Kurapika was one of the Hunter examiners, and he uses dowsing chains to find out who amongst the Hunter examees was an assassin. So when the assassins came back from their failed attempt to join the Hunter Association and assassinate the Zodiacs, they were a bit peeved. They also told that Periston and Jing that they both couldn't come along, only one of them could. But Jing and Periston were like, well, what if you guys just don't come along? And at that point, the assassins attack Jing and Periston. Jing actually uses Leorio's teleport punch to knock out one of the guards, showing that just by seeing Leorio use it, he can use it now. And eventually, Jing knocks out the other 2 assassins. But after Jing has taken out all the enemies, he realizes that this entire thing was set up by Periston to get rid of Jing. But Jing brushes that off and essentially says, I don't think the men I just knocked out are strong enough to go to the Dark Continent. But Muhair, the man in charge of those assassins, says, don't worry about it. The person who will be shooting things on the Dark Continent is Gollum. And Gollum is very strong, so strong that Jing is actually very impressed with him and wants to know his true identity. Because Gollum lives in like a huge mech robot. And after this whole debacle, Jing declares himself as second in charge of the expedition. And everybody just kind of lets it happen. Smash cut to Khakeen. 2 princes of Khakeen are communicating. Specifically, Prince Benjamin and Prince Tessierdnich, I believe. Benjamin is the older prince, Tessierdnich is the younger prince, and they're talking, and essentially they say that their father, the king of Khakeen, has accepted their idea. The idea being that whichever 2 of these princes can survive the Dark Continent will become the next king. And this is very important for the future. The competition between the 2 princes to see who's going to become king, that is. Smash cut back to the Zodiacs. Mizai Stom has asked Kurapika to find if there's an informant amongst the Zodiacs. Essentially, they ask Kurapika to use his dowsing chain and look at each member of the Zodiacs and have them state their intentions. Through this, it's revealed that Sayu is an informant, and that's the end of the arc. And that starts the Secession Contest arc, which is so Dope. If you're a Hunter x Hunter fan, please read it, but I'll surmise it. The arc opens in Kakin, where King Nasubi's personal butler goes to Prince Tessierdnich and explains to him that the succession war will start once the trip is started. But should any of Nasubi's legal children or candidates for the kingdom die before the trip, well, then it's canceled. Not the trip, the tournament. It's at this point that Tessierdnich receives an egg. You see, in Kakin, amongst royalty, it is a right to receive a guardian spirit beast egg. One day, that egg will hatch and become your guardian spirit beast. Smash cut back to the Zodiacs. It's shown that Ox is interrogating Beyond, essentially telling Beyond to tell them who the spy in the Zodiacs was. Beyond doesn't tell them anything, so the Zodiacs just have to go with what Kurapika found, which was that Sayo was the informant. Fortunately, though, an opportunity for them to figure out more information about this trip to the Dark Continent was about to happen. Apparently, all 6 of the princes of Kakin are attending this trip, and all 6 of them are hiring bodyguards. So Kurapika hires Biscuit, Basho, Izanavi, Hanzo, and Melody, essentially telling them each of you has to get hired by the 6 princes as bodyguards for information for me. Kurapika tells them that he only wants information on Prince Tessierdnich because he wants to come in contact with him. This is because Tessierdnich is arguably the strongest out of all the princes. Kurapika looks at 6 profiles of the princes and decides that Prince Halkenberg would be their best way to get to Prince Tessierdnich. Essentially, he decides that Halkenberg will be the easiest to infiltrate. So he reaches out to Prince Halkenberg in order to fill the bodyguard role, and Halkenberg invites them to his hotel. But you see, the problem is that it wasn't actually Halkenberg who invited them to the hotel. See, these were just postings with no names. So Kurapika was trying to infer by the posting which prince posted it, and unfortunately, he was wrong. You see, the person who had posted this posting was actually the queen, specifically Queen Oito, mother of Prince Wobble. Sorry, I had to go get a haircut. But when Kurapika shows up, he's disappointed that it's not the prince he was looking for. But actually, the queen says that this disappointment makes him an even better candidate to be a bodyguard. She says they're looking for somebody who came under the pretense of being hired by Prince Halkenberg. But Kurapika is confused. Why would she put up this fake posting? Essentially, the king is mandating that all princes participate in the secession war. But Prince Wobble wants nothing to do with it. So Queen Oito is actually hiring bodyguards to help her and Prince Wobble get off the ship for 10 times the regular payment that they listed. Mind you, Wobble is an infant, so there was never really a way for him to participate in said secession war. He would have kind of just got punched in the face. All the other people that Kurapika brought along with him, like Melody and Biscuit, all got jobs with the other princes, except for Tessierdnich and Halkenberg, who actually wasn't participating. Now let's get to the better part of this arc. You see, an underlining plotline that doesn't exist in the anime, unfortunately, is the fact that Hisoka is trying to kill the entirety of the Phantom Troop. Well, sort of. If you'll remember, after the Greed Island arc, they used the Nen Exorcist on Chrollo to give him his Nen back. And this makes Hisoka, like, super bloodthirsty for Chrollo all over again. So Hisoka goes all out trying to find Chrollo. And while on this bloodlusted mission, he kills a lot of Phantom Troop members, like Shalnark and Kortepi. Hisoka literally just snaps Kortepi's neck. And Shalnark, who had given his phone to Chrollo in order for him to use it in his fight against Hisoka, was kind of defenseless against Hisoka. Not that even with his phone he would have stood a chance, Hisoka still would have won, but Hisoka strings Shalnark up like a puppet after he murders him. So eventually Hisoka and Chrollo get their fight. Essentially, Chrollo is a floor master in Heaven's Arena. Remember the floors over 250, over 10 floors is a floor master? Yeah, Chrollo is one of those. And since Hisoka won 10 fights on the 200th floor, he gets the right to challenge a floor master. So he challenges Chrollo. Both of them express that this will not be a fight to first blood or points. This is a fight to the death, and a fight that Chrollo opens by using Black Voice, which he stole from Shalnark. Well, I guess he didn't steal, he collected it. You see, this is when Hisoka realizes that all the time Chrollo spent fleeing from him, he was actually collecting the Phantom Troop's abilities. Chrollo uses Black Voice on the judge, and he uses the judge to pin down Hisoka so Chrollo can stab him with his second antennae. Hisoka deflects the antennae, but Chrollo uses this opportunity to set off a series of stomps. Essentially, Hisoka's on the ground and Chrollo's just trying to stomp him to death. Hisoka believes that Chrollo is trying to use the judge to tire him out so he can get a fatal strike after Hisoka is tired. But as the judge approaches him and Hisoka goes to slash the judge down, the judge detonates. Chrollo had used his other ability, Sun and Moon. Essentially, this ability allows Chrollo to put a plus or a minus seal on anyone. And let's say I have a plus on me and you have a minus on you. If we come into contact, we explode. This is exactly what happened with the judge in Hisoka. This is when Chrollo shows the fact that he's able to use an ability called Double Face. Essentially, we all know that Chrollo has to hold his books in order to use his abilities, and he can only use the ability of the page that he's open to, except Double Face allows him to use two. It's at this point that Chrollo says something really cool. He tells Hisoka he'll show him 3 more abilities, which is a new record for the most he's ever needed to use to kill somebody. Those 3 abilities would be Order Stamp, Gallery Fake, and Convert Hands. Order Stamp allows Chrollo to control any inanimate object as long as the head is still attached to the torso. But the problem was the person he stole that ability from didn't consider a corpse to be an inanimate object. So Chrollo has to use Gallery Fake, which he takes from Cortopi, on the corpse in order to make an actual Nen created inanimate object. He then reveals that the last ability he will use is Convert Hands, which allows him to switch appearances with somebody he touches. Chrollo then jumps into the crowd to use this ability. He uses Black Voice on a larger spectator and sends him at Hisoka, while he blends in with the crowd. He then switches his 2 abilities to Black Voice and Convert Hands as he moves through the crowd, sending people at Hisoka. So now Hisoka is essentially fighting the entire audience. Except most of them aren't actual people, they're gallery fakes. But some are, and Hisoka is now having to cut down entire swaths of an audience that just wanted to watch his fight. Hisoka uses bungee gum to send himself towards the ceiling, but the puppets follow him up towards the ceiling. And while he's in the air, his back is exposed and Chrollo lunges in for a strike. Chrollo strikes him multiple times while he's in the air and vulnerable. But Hisoka has a plan for this. After he decapitates a spectator, he attaches bungee gum to the head and swings it at Chrollo. Chrollo easily dodges it, but he forgot that bungee gum has both the properties of rubber and gum. So while he's on the ground being stomped by Chrollo, he swings the head back and hits Chrollo in the back of his head. Hisoka then keeps one of these decapitated heads and begins to decapitate other puppets with this head. Hisoka then restrains one of the puppets to see what Chrollo's next actions will be. Hisoka then deduces exactly what Chrollo's plans are, spots him in the stands, and follows him into the crowd. He flings several audience members at Chrollo, to which Chrollo dodges. But in this barrage, he manages to attach bungee gum to Chrollo's leg and pulls him towards him and beats Chrollo to death. But it's not Chrollo. No, it's a gallery fake. And this gallery fake had been affected with Sun and Moon, so Hisoka has to jump back to prevent a detonation. And it's at this point that it's revealed that Chrollo was actually in the spectator's booth where he stole the microphone and told the entire audience, break Hisoka. And the entire audience swarmed onto him. Hisoka begins to fight off the crowd, but eventually the head that he's using to fight off the crowd is caught by Chrollo. Chrollo detonates the head, exploding the Nen connected to Hisoka's arm, blowing off Hisoka's hand. Hisoka realizes the danger he's now in and has to climb above an army of spectators to get to the 2nd floor of Heaven's Arena to find Chrollo. But here's the thing, Chrollo has changed the demands. The spectators are now to detonate when they see Hisoka. And these spectators detonate on the 2nd floor, sending Hisoka flying back into the crowd of spectators trying to kill him. This explosion blowing off Hisoka's left leg. And before Hisoka can grab his left leg with his bungee gum, a spectator flies into his chest, pins him to the ground, and they detonate on top of him. Later, it's revealed that the news team has come into Heaven's Arena and reported that the death match has resulted in many spectator casualties and the death of Hisoka. Hisoka's body is shown in front of Shalnar, Cortopi, and Machi in a separate room. I actually spoiled a little bit earlier when I said Hisoka killed a couple of fandom troop members, because actually that wasn't until just about now. I'm human, okay? It's been a while since I read it. Shalnak explains that the massive bodies on the floor of Heaven's Arena actually had a cushioning effect that helped Hisoka with the explosion, but the massive bodies on top of him killed Hisoka from lack of oxygen. Cortopi and Shalnak leave, and Machi says she'll stay there to stitch him up. But as she goes to stitch him up, aura begins to arise off Hisoka. Apparently, Hisoka had put bungee gum around his lungs and heart. Because if you'll remember, your Nen doesn't disappear after you die. In fact, if you die with a grudge or an ambition, your Nen only gets stronger after your death. So he'd set a condition for his Nen to resuscitate him after he died. He then admits to Machi that he bit off a bit more than he could chew, but he's about to enter his rampage era. He then restrains Machi, who was threatening him, and leaves. We then cut to Shalnark, who's on a cell phone with Chrollo. And Chrollo is telling Shalnark all about how he is going to board the Black Whale in order to steal Kakian royal family's valuables. Essentially, Chrollo is going on the trip to the Dark Continent, but only to steal from the royal family launching the trip. It's at this point that Shalnark wonders, why is Kortopi taking so long in the toilet? And it's at that point that Hisoka walks out of the toilet with Kortopi's severed head. He throws the head at Shalnark, which throws him off guard. Then Hisoka lunges forward, delivers a deadly blow to his head, and then proceeds him to tie him up to a swing with Kortopi's head at his feet. Now, I unfortunately have to get on a flight to Greece in like 4 hours. And the next arc, The Black Whale Departs, the Secession Battle Begins, is one of the longest chapters in the history of anime ever. This arc needs a video of its own. Just explaining that arc will take me close to 35 minutes. But if you guys liked this series, if you liked learning what happens after the Hunter x Hunter anime is over, guys, please tell me in the comments below and I'll cover the rest of it. And just so you know, the rest of it is them getting to the Dark Continent and a lot of really cool lore building stuff that could be used to build the manga later. Arguably, I'd say it's better than the Heaven's Arena fight. So if you guys want that, please tell me in the comments below. And while you're down there, please like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Here's my thing, Togashi, if you're watching, you don't need to draw the manga. Just type out a light novel. Type out a light novel that is the continuation of Hunter x Hunter and have somebody you trust draw it. You can even look over it. I know drawing is the hardest part. I'll just read the book. I don't even need the drawings.